Stretch and I met at Turangi Z petrol station at 6 AM. We photographed our odometers, filled up with gas and headed north to the first checkpoint at Murupara. We were riding the North Island 800, that's 800 kilometres in a counter-clockwise direction around the North Island of New Zealand in less than 12 hours. The road out of Murupara goes through several small settlements. It's a great road, especially on a fine sunny morning. No traffic and just the right number of corners to make it interesting. There are a couple of routes north out of town. One takes you through Galatea. Both routes go through the village of Waioko. Murupara used to be known as a gang town, but since the local council banned gang patches, the problem seems to have disappeared. At 7 AM in the morning, it was safe to assume that there were no gang members wandering the streets. We saw no one, and there was little or no traffic on the road. The road climbs steadily through a mixture of scrappy forest and lush native bush. 1 minute we're in harsh sunlight, the next we're in the deep shadow of the forest. People in the area live mainly off the forestry business, with Kaingaroa Forest on its western border. Murupara is 90% Māori, according to the 2013 census. The population's been steadily declining as forestry becomes more mechanised. But at the same time, unemployment has dropped dramatically due to local employment initiatives aimed at improving locals' lives. We're heading north along Galatea Road before it drops down to the hydroelectric dam at Lake Matahina. hydro village of Te Mahoe sits in a precarious position directly beneath the dam. We've been following the Rangataiki River towards Edgecombe. This is the same river that would, in April 2017, break its banks and flood an entire town. Yeah, g'day mate, I just went out hunting, thought I'd strap the deer onto the back of the car, couldn't fit it in the boot, that's how we do it here in the Bay of Plenty. Once the road hits the coast after Awakeri, it's pretty much a straight run through to Turangi. Motorcyclists hate straight roads, but as straight roads go, this has to be one of the most enjoyable, especially when the sun is shining and there's no wind. Before long, we're on the tolled expressway into Turangi, a $2.50 ride that you need to remember to pay within 5 days of travelling on it. It's a double-lane highway of almost new tarmac and virtually no traffic, save for the occasional truck and trailer unit towing logs out of the Kaingaroa forest bound for the port at Turangi. Near the end of the expressway, a large structure came into view. At first I thought it was a construction site, but I've since discovered it's one of two sculptures along the tollway. This one measures 139 metres long and 9 metres high, and it's a representation of a Māori pa site. Beyond Waihi, and before our third checkpoint at Paeroa, is the beautiful Karangahake Gorge. I've done a bit of walking through this area a month before. There are amazing tracks and tunnels left over from the gold mining days that are worth a stop and the time to explore. For us, the gorge was congested with slow-moving traffic, which proved frustrating to stretch. For me though, I enjoyed the slow ride with my visor up. Stretch and I arrived in Paeroa at 10:30 in the morning. We'd been riding for 4.5 hours, so we were about a third of the way in time, but we'd done nearly half the distance required to complete the ride. In other words, we were ahead of time. From Paeroa we rode to Kauwhata. This was where Stretch had gotten lost on his last attempt at this ride. We had an extended rest here, a pie and a coffee, before we headed off to checkpoint 4 on the Kawhia Harbour. To get to the Kinohaku Hall on the Kawhia Harbour, we rode through Huntly. The suggested route wasn't on the main highway, but through what can only be described as suburban Huntly. Huntly has fallen on hard times in recent years. The open cast coal mine was closed down around the same time that the coal-fired turbines at the Huntly plant were mothballed. Now the power station only runs 2 turbines, powered by gas from the Turangi gas fields. This comes all the way from Opunake, along a 307 kilometre long pipeline. We rode through an area of obvious poverty. There's no longer much going on in Huntly. Unemployment is high and incomes are low, and Huntly is often in the news for crime events. The mighty Waikato River, a river that's very sacred to Māori and especially to the local iwi Tainui, runs through Huntly. It supplies the water to cool the turbines, but there are strict limits on how much water can be taken, which means that the power station can often not run at full capacity. This has to be one of my favourite roads in New Zealand, and it's only a recent discovery, so apologies in advance for the length of this segment, and apologies also for the bug that decided to die on my camera lens. You get to this road, Highway 31, by following Highway 39 south out of Ngaruawahia, so it's a bit of a detour from the normally travelled State Highway 3. It's a 30 to 40 minute ride from the turnoff to our destination at Kinohaku Hall. The road twists and turns and gently undulates through farmland with the occasional stand of native bush. The ride takes you along a ridgeline, then begins to drop down to the Kawhia Harbour. Every now and then there's a glimpse of the sea to the west. Once again, conditions were perfect. No wind, lots of sunshine, very little traffic. I'll leave you to enjoy the ride. At the entrance to the Kawhia Harbour, we passed a family picnicking on the side of the road. It was high tide, an idyllic spot for some R&R. Last time I rode through here was in October 2016 on the North Island 1600. Just along this road there'd been a murder-suicide where an elderly couple were killed by a young man with mental health issues. The place was swarming with police and I was surprised we were able to get through. Hard to believe that these tragic events happened in such a beautiful place. We left Kinohaku Hall at around 2 PM. We had 4 hours to make it back to Turangi within the 12-hour time limit. Surely that was plenty of time. 227 kilometres at an average of 57 kilometres per hour. To successfully complete the ride required an average of 67 kilometres per hour, so we were well within our target. The road to Aria is a small detour that intersects State Highway 3 and State Highway 4. It's a pleasant little country highway. There were a few roadworks, so care was needed in some sections where a fine layer of gravel remained. The road narrows out of Aria, heading towards State Highway 4 and Taumaranui. There were sporadic roadworks and some tight corners that kept us on our toes. The ride out of Taumaranui took us through what can best be described as bush tunnels. This is the landscape of the desert road before it becomes desert. Native bush, toi toi, great visibility, roads in really good condition. After 817 kilometres and 11.5 hours of riding and hanging around, we've arrived at Turangi. Stretch is ecstatic. I'm pretty happy too. What an amazing ride in the best weather imaginable. Crowded House wrote the song 4 Seasons in One Day because that's what you often get in New Zealand. The Stretch and I, we only had one season, summer, all the way. We couldn't have been luckier. We gassed up at the petrol station so that we had our final receipt. The North Island 800 was done and dusted with 30 minutes to spare. Check out some more rides on thinman.co.nz and don't forget to subscribe.